Welcome back to the Peptides for Women podcast. I'm Jennifer Woodward, and I have the most special guest in the whole wide world to me, hopefully is to you too. This is my husband, Beau Woodward. Beau and I have been married almost 24 years. We met while I had just graduated high school, and he thought I was older than I was. I was 17. You were what, 22?
Think I was still 21, but you were like 6 feet tall and you had graduated
5'11.
and you just graduated high school. And so it was very, I, I found out you were 17 by asking you when you turned 19, if I remember. Like, when do you turn 19? And you're like, I turned 18 in November. And I was like, oh, I thought you graduated high school. You're like, I did. I'm just smart.
Just a November birthday. Well,
Mhm.
I'm glad that happened because I do remember watching you walk down the hallway at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, and the first thing I noticed about you were your piercing blue eyes. And honestly, even though some days are rough, those eyes still get me. So I'm married to
Sure they
you.
do.
All right. We've kind of been on our peptide journey together too. So we're going to talk about your peptide journey today. Everyone's heard about mine. And I do remember also us sitting outside. I think it was maybe May or June. You love to barbecue. So we were outside, you were barbecuing tri-tip. And like you usually do, you give the dogs all a piece of tri-tip. Then you come over to me, give me a piece of tri-tip. And I was like, no, I'm good. And you looked at me, you're like, are you on one of those weight loss pills? I was like, no, fool. I'm not on a weight loss pill. And I was like, I am on a GLP-1 shot though. And you, I thought you were going to be freaked out because every time I do something weird to my body, you freak out on me a little bit. But the only thing you said was, I want to try that.
Yep. Yep. I was just excited when you told me that you were A, microdosing and B, starting to use peptides because, you know, I think I think probably like 10 years ago when I was in my like mid 30s, I was asking you about human growth hormone and you were like, it's still kind of unsafe to take. And so when you told me about microdosing probably a year or two ago, I was like, I wonder if you could microdose some other stuff. And then when you finally got around to the peptides, I was like, okay, this is going to be fun.
Well, I did spend some time microdosing some other stuff. You didn't like that as much as you like the peptides, though.
You want to talk about that stuff or?
Well, no, not really. We can save that for another period of time. This is all
Okay.
about peptides.
Okay.
But you were kind of into it right away. So instead of being worried about me, you were more intrigued. And I know one thing about you is you love the data, you love the research, and you love the science. So if, I can show you facts, then you're pretty open-minded about things. But I do want to ask you, when you watch me start using peptides, what changes have you noticed in me personally since I started, like energy, mood, body, anything surprising? Then we're going to talk about you because you're the best judge of me, you know?
Uh, that's a good question. I was not expecting that question. What do I notice in you? I do notice that you have a little more energy, and that you are, as a result of that, I think, a little more upbeat. Um, I think I notice as much as anything that you were getting thinner and less inflamed, if I'm being completely honest. And so that probably had a positive impact on your demeanor as well, I'm guessing.
I'm just a
Uh,
girl.
so, I mean, I think I noticed you, your diet, I think, is the healthiest it's been in a long time for the last 10 years. You know, I'll never forget, like probably 15 years ago when you read a book on how coconut oil was the healthiest thing you could possibly um, put in your body. And so you put it in everything that we ate or drank for like a couple of months until I finally had to just be like, no more coconut oil. Like, you can use it, but only selectively when you're baking cookies or something. And And so your diet has been kind of like that. You have a little bit more of an extreme all-in kind of personality. And so you like more is one of your sayings, yours and Adam Abel's. And um or maybe that was Chris Short, but anyway. And since you started on peptides, I've noticed you eat in a more balanced and in my opinion, healthy way. You're more moderate in your eating patterns, which I do think is better for everyone. I don't think it's good to have an extreme diet in general where you exclude entire categories of foods. Um, Obvious exclusions being if you have a allergic response or histamine response to, dairy or gluten or whatever. If you're actually allergic to it, then you probably should minimize its impact on you, in your diet. So I think you've gotten more balanced.
Okay, good. I like that. I do feel that way, honestly. I spent so many years trying to cut out so many foods that I felt like were making me inflamed or hurting my stomach or causing me to gain weight. And being on the microdose of GLP-1, I do feel like my diet has expanded because I'm able to eat more foods without that food noise in my head. That's not really anything you'd understand, I think, as you, but for those of us who struggle with that term food noise, that obsessive thought about food and cravings for food, it has been very, very helpful.
You
Um,
know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I actually would agree and disagree with what you just said in terms of historically, I would not have appreciated what you meant by food noise, but since I started microdosing the GLP-1, um, I I think I always had a sense that I could be a glutton, so to speak, on eating too much pizza or always thinking about food or my next meal or what sounds good for dinner or whatever. And since I started microdosing the GLP-1, like I definitely noticed that I think about food way less, number one, and completely differently, number two. Like the GLP-1, a thing that I didn't know about it before I started microdosing was that, you know, you're you're just not going to want to eat something that has a lot of fat in it. And so the first time I did that, my tummy was kind of upset and I just did not feel good for the next couple of hours. And I don't know if the consequence is intended or a byproduct or just a random byproduct, but like as a result of that, I make sure that I do not eat a lot of fat in any one meal at any one time. And anytime I catch myself starting off with ice cream or something like that, I'm like, dude, I better stop eating this and I need to eat some protein and whatnot immediately to compensate for it, just so I feel good later. I also noticed that I just don't care to eat as much because I don't like feeling full. And the GLP-1 definitely leaves you feeling fuller than usual pretty much anytime you eat a meal if you overeat at all. And
yeah.
so psychologically, though, that's what's surprising to me. Like I get that mechanism of action, but what's surprising to me is how food has just fallen off a cliff in terms of its real estate that it takes up in my thinking and in my brain. So,
I love that. Very
yeah.
interesting to hear from you. I have told a little bit about your story on this podcast, but I'd love to hear it in your words. When I explain where you're coming from, you were a D1 college athlete, you swam for University of Southern California. You've always taken good care of your body and you've just been very balanced. So give us a little bit of a background of your evolution on health and fitness and nutrition just as an athlete from early childhood.
Yeah, I mean, zero appreciation for nutrition all the way through swimming at USC. I remember once I stopped swimming, in college, in those first few years afterwards, it occurred to me that in retrospect, wished I had focused more on my technique in terms of my stroke technique for swimming and on my nutrition. I wished I had not eaten like crap all the time. They trained us so hard that I would eat anything and everything, and like a hilariously large amount of calories, like we'd pretty much eat 2 meals at every meal and still be hungry like 2 hours later. And you know, I definitely would just eat anything and everything all hours of the day, or night even. And um, so once that thought occurred to me in my 20s, at some point, I started wanting to be a little bit healthier. And then I met and married you, which was great and a huge help in that. And, I started to become more thoughtful in terms of what I put in my body because as you taught me, or pointed out to me really, like, what you eat really represents the vast majority of what you put in your body. And therefore, your body is going to burn and behave and function according to what you put into it, just like a car would or anything else. And so if you put high quality ingredients into your body, then your body should function better than if you put low quality ingredients into your body. And you know, I I believe that the Lord kind of made everything for our good, as the Bible teaches us. And so, if you think that that is true and you believe that that is true, then everything has some merit um, in an appropriate volume or quantity. And so, I've always really liked exercising because it's also taking care of our body. And I exercise, when you're young, you exercise for performance and to look good. As you get older, you're kind of and I'm in the phase now where I'm exercising so that I'm still mobile in my 70s and feel good. And, you know, I can keep up with you, frankly. So, I also use it as a stress relief, you know, and find it to be the best way to get stress relief. You never really stop wanting to compete when you're an athlete and raised like that. And yet your body kind of gives out on you. And honestly, competition is the best way to relieve stress. But when that goes by the wayside, because like for me, my knee when I was like 42 gave out and they couldn't fix it. So I can't really do that anymore. So exercise is a great way for stress relief. So,
Cool. Yeah.
so yeah, I think that answers your question
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I like to color the picture that you've just always been balanced in your approach to health, never too extreme, always cognizant of it, working toward it, but not overworking or underworking. So I just feel like you're a very good reference point for a lot of people who are getting into their peptide journey. On that note, you started peptides about 4 or 5 months ago. So you already mentioned your microdose of tirzepatide, GLP-1. But walk us through your peptide stack, why you selected those peptides, and what you feel like they're doing for your body at this point.
Okay. One other thing I'm going to mention on the last point, just before I walk through the peptide stack, is I feel like kids are really helpful because with kids, what I have realized is I'm always talking to our kids about you need to be consistent with your workouts. You need to have good workouts. But at the same time, if you get injured, then that's going to be a significantly worse setback than having a mediocre workout. And so, listening to your body is important. And also, in terms of being balanced in everything you do. And, and, you know, taking a little bit of a longer term view on your health and nutrition. So it's tempting to want to look good for vacation for me in the summer or whatever, and to try to be really regimented leading up to that. But the more balanced you can be in terms of taking care of your body over time, the better off you're going to be. Because if you injure yourself, you're not going to look good on vacation or have fun on vacation either. So I just
Sure.
think that and so I find that anything that I'm telling my kids is probably pretty good wisdom for me to live by as well. So,
And
on
our
that
house,
note,
we call those dad chats, which I love.
yeah, yeah, you guys totally make fun of me for those, but whatever. They're still good for you. So, on that note, I actually think peptides is like the perfect um, consequence, or it's like, in my opinion, peptides, I think of them like peak biotechnology. Like they work with your body, they mimic or are biosimilars for actual molecules in your body. Um, they're like the best vitamin. I feel like they're biotech's version of a healthy vitamin for you. Instead of having to take vitamins from the 70s, you can take peptides today that have um, a much larger and healthier impact on your body. You've always told me that there's a bunch of extra material in vitamins as well. You don't get that with your peptides, right? You get a clean infusion of something that is targeted to a specific mechanism of action within your body. And so my stack that I take that um, honestly, I even tell my friends, like, I don't know why you wouldn't take everything that I'm taking, unless you're like Jacob Panero and you're really thin already. But is I take the microdose of the GLP-1 tirzepatide, which actually comes with B12 in it too, for some reason, which I don't even know that, but apparently they thought it was good to throw in there. Um, and then I take NAD plus because I like that it accelerates or really, it doesn't really accelerate. It actually seems like, from my layman's perspective, it basically helps your body's cells reproduce similar to how they do in your 20s, or maybe even like late teens, from what I've read or heard or been told. Um, and it gives me more energy, which I like quite a bit. Have definitely noticed that I feel sharper for the first few days after I take it, um, and have more energy and just function cognitively. Um, Probably the best I have felt mentally in at least a decade. Then I take human growth hormone, which is what I originally asked you for like 10 years ago that you said I couldn't take yet. I take actually all three of the human growth hormones that they offer. So Cimarelin by itself, and then the combo treatment of ipamorelin and tesamorelin. And I stagger those. So I take one day and the other the next day or 2 days later. But depending on how I'm feeling and whatnot, I'm not one to want to overdo, especially anything I'm putting in my body. I'll overdo training or I'll overdo work, but I just don't like taking antibiotics. I don't like taking painkillers. I just don't like putting things in my body generally. And so I'm trying to figure out, it's been a few months now, like how often I want to take these things, um, how consistent I want to be, or what's a good pattern with that. And so, but I do think that it's better to have all three in my experience, which has only been going on for about a month, but I definitely kind of feel like the best when I'm rotating between the ipamorelin and tesamorelin and the cimarelin. And I noticed a substantial improvement in my workouts from that. I was not trying to work out harder at all. I just noticed that once I started taking those over the next several weeks, I, in retrospect, looked back and was shocked to see how much stronger I got just in a few weeks. So, for example, like I haven't power cleaned 165 for reps in probably 10 years. And I did that without even like thinking about it. I just threw the extra weight on. I was like, I feel like I'm feeling pretty strong today. Maybe I'll throw a little bit more weight on. And I should be careful because I'm old, so I'll just shoot for like 12 reps at this weight, and then I'll take it down. And I got through 12 reps and was like, yeah, this feels pretty good. I'll keep going, and finished out the whole workout with it. And I honestly didn't even realize it till afterwards. And I was like, I can't believe I just did that. I don't think I've done that since I was like 35, and I'm 47 for what it's worth. So that's what I've been telling some of my friends is, I wish I could have started taking this in my like mid to late 30s. I wonder the last peptide I'm taking in my stack is BPC 157 and TB 500, the Wolverine stack, which in my opinion isn't even really the Wolverine stack without taking the human growth hormone peptide as well. Like you need kind of all of it in my opinion. But I get it. They name it like that because of the regenerative qualities of BPC and TB 500. And I question whether or not my knee even would have blown out if I had been taking that stuff in my late 30s, you know. So
Cool. I love
that's
it.
my stack. TB
Love this.
500 and BPC 157, ipamorelin, tesamorelin, cimarelin, um, tirzepatide, microdose, and NAD plus.
That is quite the stack. So let's speak to that a little bit. You and I have been in this, on our health journeys for quite some time. That's an expensive stack you have going on. What would you say to people who are a little bit nervous to invest in peptides, but are on similar health journeys?
I would ask how much you spend on vitamins, how much you spend on exercise, how much you spend on stress relief, and or your sleep patterns. Because I mean, if you add all that up, I suspect you're spending a lot more than anyone realizes. How much you spend on your diet regimen, you know? Do you take pre-workouts, post-workouts? Um, do you go on, 3-month exercise kicks where you pay to go through a boot camp or things like that to try to get skinnier and healthier? You actually have to include all those costs because you get all of those without hardly changing anything in your life by taking the peptide stack. Like don't um I don't have to really I can work out at home. I can go for jogs. There's a lot of free ways to exercise or really, really, really cheap ways to exercise.
You go
And
for
when you
jogs?
add in the peptide, no, I can't because of my knee, but I would if I was just saying, for instance, there's a lot of free ways, right?
Mhm.
Um, I would if I could. I would still play Ultimate if I could run.
Mhm.
But since I can't, then I don't get to play Ultimate or go for jogs. But you know, the peptides really achieve everything in my mind that we just went through, right? And then they actually improve even beyond that. Like I'm sleeping better than I've slept in at least 10 years. I feel like I couldn't even remember the last time I slept like I was a 10-year-old where I'm literally like drooling on the pillow. I'm sleeping so hard, and all I do is roll over the other way to get away from the drool in the middle of the night and immediately go back to sleep. I think I'm getting up to go pee in the middle of the night maybe once a week, and I used to do that probably 4 or 5 times a week. That's not really an issue for me. Like I'm not one of those people who wakes up multiple times a night to go to take a leak, but I did usually wake up once a night. And in the last couple of months, I don't, maybe it happens once a week I get up. So my sleep's better, my energy level's better, my workouts are better. I haven't actively changed my diet at all. I would say that the way the GLP-1 worked on me, I probably eat about 20 to 25% less volume of food. You stressed to me that as I get older, I need to prioritize protein intake, and that if by taking this microdose of tirzepatide that my appetite goes down, I need to make sure I'm prioritizing protein. So that's really the only thing that I think about doing. Other than that, I still have a drink 4 or 5 nights a week, a glass of wine or bourbon usually because I'm gluten intolerant. I still have ice cream whenever I want, but because I know that if I have too much fat, it's going to upset my tummy. It's like I don't even want to have more than a few bites of ice cream. I don't miss it at all. which is what's interesting to me as well. I still eat pizza whenever I want, though a little bit, maybe 20 to 25% less than I normally would. I normally would eat almost a full pizza, and I'll eat only like 5 slices now. Um, and so, like it's a very effortless change, and yet I am down probably 15 pounds from about 215, 216 to about 201, 202, depending on the day. Um, and I still take a little bit of vitamins now. I still will take a little bit of black maca for my testosterone. I still will take a multivitamin occasionally if I'm feeling a little under the weather. Like right now, they've been shaking almonds for a month here in Bakersfield, and so the air is terrible, and so my throat feels a little bit, kind of bugs me just a little bit. And so anyway, um, some minor adjustments, but then I get all these other benefits of feeling better, looking better, in my opinion, more energy, better sleep, best workouts I've had in 10 years.
And that kind of brings up one of the questions that people have when you're using a GLP-1, you worry about muscle loss. So, yeah, the weight loss can occur, but people are worried they'll lose their lean muscle mass, which is a problem, especially as you get older. For you, it looks, I mean, I'm just looking at you. We haven't done a DEXA scan or in-body scan or anything, but it looks to me, yes, you've lost about 15 pounds of fat, but your muscle has still stayed probably just where it's been at for the past like 10 or 15 years. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I think that that's true as well. I'm stronger, like I said. So it's hard to imagine that if I have lost muscle, it is very, very, maybe a pound tops, I'm guessing. And I don't really see where I lost any muscle. So, and I'm working out better. So it's hard to see that I certainly haven't lost strength, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And that was something that I was concerned about. I've definitely lost a lot of fat around my belly in particular, which is amazing. It feels awesome, to be honest. So,
Yep. And that's at a microdose again. So we're intentionally taking this microdose to not shut down our appetites by 50 to 75%. Like that, kind of gentle 15 to 20% appetite curve is effective without messing with your muscle mass, without messing with your hormones, without messing with your mood or your energy. So that's why I particularly like the microdose and why I really encourage people don't start with, 10 milligrams or 15 milligrams. That's going to be really hard on your body. If you can get away with 5 or 2.5, that's going to be much easier on your body. Just a reminder, as I say every episode, I'm not a doctor. I don't diagnose, treat, or prescribe. The peptides that we get and that I help my clients get are done through a third party compounding pharmacy that is 503B approved and fantastic, but it is doctors writing those prescriptions, not me, just so you know. Um, Interestingly enough, though, I've observed you, talking about peptides with your friends, and men don't always openly talk about health stuff. So, what would you tell other guys your age or even a little bit older about why peptides are worth paying attention to?
I'm a big fan of anything that works, right? And particularly if it's clean and has like a very minimal um, effect on how you live your life. I feel like most people in general are trying to live their lives. We have to work and put up with a lot of stress in our life. And so adding stress to it, pardon me, excuse me. So adding stress to it through putting a bunch of external demands on yourself with exercise and diet just always seemed like counterintuitive to me because who can sustain it? And therefore you just end up coming back to other stuff that's not that healthy. So um, it's kind of like I said earlier, I view peptides as being like kind of peak biotechnology, the next evolution of like vitamins and like like healthcare in the similar kind of genre, if you will, of what vitamins and diet routines and things like that are. I feel like they basically work in harmony with your body to um, help you achieve the exact goals that you're actually going for in a targeted way that has a very minimal impact on how you live. And that is incredibly, almost like hard to appreciate, like beautiful, that something can make it so easy to where you can pretty much keep living your life the exact same way you did, but you are going to be a little bit thinner with a little bit more energy and a little bit better sleep. Like, and then on top of that, the Wolverine stack, the BPC and TB 500, as you age, probably dramatically impact or reduce your risk of injury. And they certainly accelerate your recovery if you do have an injury. That has been proven quite a bit. So,
So those are all things that you will talk about with your guy friends. Because I do
yeah,
hear you talk about peptides quite a bit with your colleagues, with your friends.
yeah,
They've helped you so much. I'm observing you, sharing some of those benefits with other people. It's just been fun to watch. Like, go, Bo.
yeah. Well, I'm like, anybody that I like, I'm like, you should definitely take these. So, you know,
Love it.
yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. So question, do you feel like a guinea pig sometimes, or do you feel like you're more of an early adopter? Because we've talked about this. We were even thinking at one point for a couple of days about investing in or buying a peptide company because peptides are just kind of getting started. What's your take on where peptides are going in the future? And tell me about that guinea pig versus early adopter mentality.
So it's a natural, my thinking on that is it's a natural byproduct of my thinking I've already shared. Like if they really are like the modern vitamin, then I don't know why people would take pharmaceuticals. I don't know why people would take vitamins when you can take something that keeps you healthy. I think that modern medicine is evolving as well from being reactive to proactive. People want to be healthier just in general, so they don't get sick as often. And peptides achieve that as well. That's why I say they're kind of peak biotech because they are a biotechnology solution designed to work in harmony with your body's current mechanism of action using biosimilar molecules. And so I don't know why people would keep taking vitamins. I think everybody within the next probably 10 years are going to end up taking peptides. I don't know if it'll be the exact same setup. I suspect that pharmacies like Ellie will compound more and more of the peptides together so that it becomes a little bit more even easier to take. I think that technology might improve so you even end up taking them less often because they survive in your system longer. But I don't know about that. That's kind of speculative. That's definitely speculative. I mean, you have to take a vitamin every day. Like it's kind of crazy that they make a peptide that you take once a week.
Well, yeah, we have seen that iteration. So I've said this before on the podcast, but the first generation of GLP-1 was liraglutide, and you had to dose it every single day. So some of those, early GLP-1s were for type 2 diabetes, but then they started to see like weight coming off by 30%, 40% for these type 2 diabetics. They're like, well, we need to synthesize this and make it better. And it was
Yeah.
really only with semaglutide, like 2008, 2009, that we got the molecule that we were able to dose once a week. And now, like there are drops, there are, sublingual tablets and dissolvable strips. But really, I mean, injectable peptides are the OG. And I always tell my clients they do work the best. Like if you're injecting subcutaneously, like intramuscularly, then muscularly, then they just get into your bloodstream faster. It's cleaner. It's just easier. However, I think a lot of people don't understand that, that peptides are biosimilar compounds, like you said, but they're still grouped in a category with medications. They have to be prescribed by a doctor. What do you think most people don't understand about peptides, and how can you kind of reassure them? Because you're a guy that just recently started taking a shit ton of injections.
So, first of all, I think the only reason that they're being prescribed is or need to be prescribed is because they were designed by biotechnology and everybody wants to get their slice of the pie in terms of taking some revenue from something that's clearly better than everything else that's been designed thus far in a similar category. And because what I like about them is they're very clean in terms of what you're putting in your body. What did you ask me besides that?
What do you think most people don't understand about peptides? I'm specifically thinking about needing to inject them, like using a needle to inject them on yourself. Do you think that
I
that's a deterrent for people?
maybe. I mean, it's certainly a little bit intimidating, but then from my friends who have started taking it, several of them have told me a few weeks later, once they start injecting, like, I kind of like this. This is like feels like I'm doing the healthiest thing I can do for myself. Like I, I I think about, I had one person say that, I think about like why I'm taking a vitamin that I don't even know what's in this thing. Whereas at least with the peptides, like I know exactly what I'm putting in my body, And so that's I don't know what I think human nature is a little bit of a fear of the unknown. And certainly I know that as people get older, like they get more resistant to evolving with technology, and I think that there's probably a little bit of that. There's always a little bit of fear around the healthcare space on both sides from a pharmaceutical standpoint of, they'll give you anything that'll give you crazy side effects. And that's why I don't like taking necessarily antibiotics or painkillers or whatever. And then on the flip side of the, what do you call it? Like the naturopathic side of medicine, within the United States, at least, there's a, reticence to believe what's snake oil versus actually effective. And so anytime anybody introduces something new into the space, like peptides are kind of new, I think there's a reticence to believe like how are they trying to screw me on this one?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
And I am like a big proponent of peptides because assuming you're sourcing your peptides from a reputable, clean lab, you know, sophisticated source and not just some bros peptide business, then you know, I think which by the way also happens with vitamins, also happens with um, some of the naturopathic supplements and stuff like that. You always need to be careful about where you're sourcing anything that you're putting in your body. Just like you wouldn't want to eat the lowest quality fruits and vegetables, preferably, you'd like to eat the highest quality fruits and vegetables. I think if you have the similar mindset around peptides and you're sourcing them from a quality source, then you're in great shape and you're probably putting in your body like the best thing that you ever put in your body.
Yep. If you
Yeah.
were to try another peptide, I know you're on like six right now. Is there one that you're kind of curious to try?
Off the top of my head, I forget what they're all named. So, there was one that I was reading about recently, in your peptide thing that you showed me last week or this earlier this week that focused. There was a complement to NAD plus. It was supposed to be super good for you cognitively, and I thought that would be fun to try. So,
That's SS31. I'm taking it. I do like it. Been helping me with energy. But as I pointed out last night, I was accidentally taking it at night with my ipamorelin and tesamorelin, and then wondering why the heck my sleep was broken, even though I was taking my growth hormone analogs. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm taking my stupid energy peptide at night too. What a dummy. So changed that last night. Slept like a baby. Oh, that is awesome. Okay. So I love it. If there was, let's finish up with this. I mean, give some encouragement to someone who's coming into this podcast, never trying peptides, still having all the basic questions you and I first had when we were, just exploring peptides. What's one encouragement you can give someone who hasn't yet started? Succinctly.
succinctly, I would say you are a 10-year-old at Magic Mountain for the first time, about to get on an enormous roller coaster, and you are a little bit scared. But if you get on the roller coaster, you're probably going to be like, that was awesome. So that's kind of how I felt, in all honesty. Okay, crazy Jenny's got some other crazy thing, but I think these are going to be good. And it's checking all the boxes. And I think I would like to try this. So, um, I will say that I was expecting a very small bit of measurable improvement, and I got way more like improvement, way more um, what do you call it, progress on every front than I was expecting, plus some additional like tertiary benefits on top of that. So big fan, full disclosure, not it I would actually just finish by saying like a lot of this stuff you probably I don't know how much you like me saying this, Jenny, but a lot of the stuff over the years that Jenny reads about implements within our house, I'm like, give me a break. This is at best a placebo effect. That is not the case with the peptides. It is quite the opposite. So,
Well, there you have it, folks. From Beau Woodward, he does like to tell it how it is. So I do appreciate your supportive but still relatively unbiased view on peptides. I mean, you came into it also as the cynic that you are and got positive results that you're pretty happy with. Of course, our journeys are evolving. It's been almost 11 months for me. It's been like almost 5 months for you. So we'll do a check back every couple of months because you and I keep each other honest, I think. And I love that you called me Crazy Jenny on the podcast. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Happy 24th anniversary.
yes, happy 24th anniversary in like 23 days. The other thing I would just say is like a plug for FDN, like their thing that you did there with them for almost 10 years around test, don't guess is something that I very much appreciated that they instilled in you. And that is one of the other aspects that I love about the peptides is like it's measurable improvement across the board. It's very easy to see your results very quickly within the first 30 to 60 days.
Yeah, yeah, I love it too. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking time out of your
Yeah.
time, I love, for coming on my podcast. I appreciate your perspective. Thanks for sharing it. And like I said, I'll have you back on in a couple months and we'll see what's happening with you. Sound good?
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you for having me. I'm very thankful that you have made our family healthier for the last 15 years and helped me out with all this. So thank you.
Praise the Lord. You are welcome. Love you, babe.
All right. Love you too.